The Producer Podcast highlights are back as we turn our attention to crew conversations. Join us as we're sitting down with other industry professionals to talk about what the producer should know about their crew position in the industry. Today, we're joined by guests from both seasons 2 and 5 of the show to discuss this topic. So without further ado, let's get started. Kicking things off on this episode of the Producer Podcast Highlights is director Brett Varvel.
Running a good film set. It's interesting that it's a very interesting way to phrase it because it's such a subjective thing for a lot of people. I've been a part of micro budgets, small budgets, big budgets. It's hard as far as production is concerned. And sometimes I am the producer. Sometimes I've worked for a producer. Sometimes I'm the actor on set. So I've had a fair bit of perspective on that term, running a good set. And I think what it really boils down to is how well you treat people. I did a project last year that's still in post-production that I'm not contractually at liberty to discuss what it is, but it was one of my favorite film sets that I've ever been a part of. And by and large, that is because the producer cared deeply about us, and when I say us, I mean the cast and the crew, as human beings and not as employees. Like the fundamental simplicity of that is so important that yes, this is a job, you're an employee, and you're hired for this many days and all these different types of things, and a producer can navigate it like that. They're totally their prerogative to just treat it like a business, which you need to, don't get me wrong, you do need to treat it like a business, but at the end of the day, like checking up on people as a producer and asking them, how are you doing? How is your living accommodations? How's the food? Emotionally, how are you doing? What is it that you need that you don't have right now? Those types of questions, you'd be shocked how people's demeanor on set would change if the director or the producer, and I would honestly use, I would all these things I'm suggesting, I think it should be both, and the director and producer must be functioning this way on set. And it because I just for it to expound on that, like the producer is in charge of their living accommodations, their salary, their food, their just their literal comfort on set. The director then is responsible for inspiring the most out of their talent and leading them in their talent. And so if you're not caring about the person and you're only caring about the end product, that person is going to have a miserable time on set. I can guarantee you. But this project that I mentioned, like it was a tough shoot. There was a lot that we had to accomplish in a relatively short amount of time. It was a 5-week shoot that should have taken like 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And so we were packing a lot of pages in every day, but everybody constantly had a smile on their face. And I've never been a part of a project that was so warm and welcoming and exciting I don't know how else to describe it. Like everyone, um, down to the volunteer PA, they just had a great time on the film set. But I think I think it's because, to sum it up, every single person on that film set felt valued,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't just feel like an object being used to create something. And that's honestly, like, it goes back to what I was talking about at the very beginning of what I believe the role of a director is: to be a servant leader. Um, it's the epitome of Jesus washing the disciples' feet. It is, even though everyone's working for the director and the producer, um, being willing to get down in the dirt and see things from their perspective and see their humanity and care about them as a person,
Mm-hmm.
is so important. And I think it's something that brings God much glory in what we do. Um, because I work in Christian film a lot, it can be easy to get fixated on the final product that is spreading a message to people. And it's easy to then neglect the ministry that happens on a film set, which in many ways I'm starting to understand is just as important, if not more important sometimes, than the final product of the movie. Because Jesus cares deeply about the one-on-one evangelism and discipleship of the gospel. And it's why he said, one of his final things he said to his disciples in the upper room was, "A new command I give you, love one another." You know, this command wasn't show people what to do. It was love one another. And Jesus demonstrated what that looks like. And I think that if directors and producers would press into that reality and adopt that into the way that they lead a cast and crew, they'll have some of the most happy and memorable film sets of their life.
Next up, we're joined by production designer Morgan Schutz.
It's a topic I try to be gracious about, but also it's really important. It's explained like this. A lot of the time, we have projects that are low budget and they're trying to save money. But also people's lives are made of time, and time is money. So a lot of times, instead of throwing money at a problem, you see producers will be throwing people at a problem. And that means people working overtime, working long hours, not getting enough sleep, which can lead to like less productive hours that you're actually working, and can be dangerous when you have people making commutes and driving, that it increases the danger of car accidents, especially at night. And the art department only has a limited amount of time. There's only 24 hours in every day, just like everybody else. And even though the art department works magic, at a certain point, the art department can't work magic anymore, or it becomes dangerous for the art department to be spending as much time as they are on a project. And the way that can be really helped, to allow the art department to have the time to actually rest, and to be able to be safe and productive, is having off days included in the schedule, particularly for those long 1-2 months shoots. Having 2-day weekends is very, very helpful for the art department, because art department works on their off days. Camera can have the day off when they have an off day. Art department's still working. Art department is doing returns from the past week. Art department is going shopping for the next week. They're building sets for the next day, building set pieces. Oftentimes, they may be staying up late into the night on just your general shooting days. And so having that off day, so it's generally for 2-day weekends, that's generally like Saturday and Sunday. So having that first off day where we can have our working off day that we're actually still working. And then our second off day where we're actually getting a chance to have a day of rest. Because, rest is both scientifically and biblically important. On the seventh day, God rested. So having a chance to actually rest boosts the art department's productivity. It boosts their not only their attitude and their energy, but also their creativity, which helps the project to be better. And it also gives them a chance to physically rest, which makes them safer. So all around, it's good for everybody. So ultimately, having not only the money but the time budgeted in for art department is something I think that not all producers think ahead of time for, but it's something that can really enhance their production behind the scenes.
Continuing on down the line of department heads, next up is Gaffer Grant Cadwell.
Yeah, I think that this kind of relates to producers working with crew in general, not specifically Griffin Electric. If you as a producer take on, this is something I've thought about a lot recently, is that I kind of have the mentality of, if I take care of my clients, so being producers, directors, people that hire me to work on stuff, they're going to take care of me and continue to give me work. They're going to refer me to people. And they're going to have a vested interest in making sure that my business is successful. And that's just kind of been the philosophy that I've operated under. But I think that as a producer, if you take on that philosophy of, hey, these are people that make it so that I can create a project and never have to touch a camera or never have to touch a light, and you can bring on technicians that are really good at what they do, like having a vested interest in their success, I think is really important. And like, I can feel it. Like, I can feel when there are people who are just, they're always undercutting rates on people, and they're not giving people the tools that they need, and there's not really a transparent conversation. It's just like the producer's just shopping around for a deal, and they don't really care about the people involved, versus some people that I work for, I'm like, whoa, you like actually care about me at the end of the day. And that means that I'm going to stay up late the night before, making sure that every item is where it needs to be, and like the truck is A-okay and good to go. And it's gonna be things that you won't necessarily see, or you won't necessarily know, like, how would it played out differently if you hadn't had a vested interest in the success of your crew. But it's like, it will make an actual difference. And I think it just, like, I think I mentioned it earlier, if you have your crews back, not just on a single production, but as a freelancer and as a professional, because we all know that filmmaking is not, it's not an easy profession. And to have allies who are like, I have a vested interest in seeing your career success overall. And this is especially if you've worked together for a couple times and sort of have developed a relationship with someone. Really go to bat for them and see to it that they can continue working and doing what they love to do. And they will make sure that you get the absolute best product at the end of the day, because they can feel that you're not just in it for yourself. You do care about the people that you're hiring. So that's what I would just throw out there as an encouragement to producers to think about.
Next up, we're joined by Director of Photography, Dan Parsons.
I'm going to put this out there I'm not going to make an assumption that what I say just is or is true, but I'm going to speak this as this is what's true for me as a cinematographer working with a producer. And if this resonates with the producer and has an impact, I think that impact will be one that is very well received by any crew that they ever work with in the future. So there's a moment in the film Braveheart where William Wallace is confronting some of the lords in Scotland, and he basically says, you think that the people exist to provide you with position, but I tell you that your position exists so that you can provide freedom for the people. And it's this idea that, it sounds like when I call myself a cinematographer, it means something to me. It means something to my filmmaking friends, and it means something to people who are outsiders to the industry. If I were to call myself a producer, all of us hold our positions with some regard. And some of us hold those positions we all hold them different. If I were a producer, I would view myself as the person who holds the intellectual property that is created at the end, holds the rights to that. But the way that I would get to that point is through one simple thing: service. So I believe, so this is how I've come to this. My working definition as a cinematographer of an incredible producer, somebody who is immensely talented and valuable in what they do and what they are to a movie and what they bring to a movie, is simply this: a person who deeply understands how to bring the right people together to make a project, and to then put those right people in the right positions to make the film, and then does everything within their power and their resource to remove as many obstacles as possible, enabling and empowering those people to do exactly and precisely what they were hired to do. Now, what I've experienced too often is there is a lack of connection between reality and desires. Like, here's what we're setting out to do. We really don't have the budget to do this, but we're going to do it anyway. So we're going to do it at the cost of the people making the film. We're going to take our problem that we've created and put it on you. Think about filmmaking. Filmmaking is literally a bunch of creatives and technical folks sitting around creating problems that they then have to solve. I mean, think about it. We create our own problems to solve. But what you don't want to do is add unnecessary problems to that. Oh, you guys need to solve all those problems that are necessary to create this film, but now you've got to do it in 18-hour days instead of 10-hour days or 12-hour days, because we can only afford to film this many times, this many days. So we're still going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it at your cost. So ideally, producers are never... an incredible producer will always look at the problems they're facing, and they'll figure out where to build the dam and not let those problems go through. They're going to hold within themselves problems, because if I'm paying money as a producer to hire a cinematographer to do their job, the last thing I need them doing is solving makeup problems, or solving production design problems, or solving personnel problems, or solving equipment problems. I want them solving the problems that relate to their role. The last thing I need to do is put extra problems on them. If I am paying money to hire a director, I don't want them solving scheduling issues, right? And so you want to make sure that you're not be honest with yourself again about the film you're making, and make the film that you have the budget for. And very often, maybe consider, is this the right time to make that movie, or should I wait till I have the budget to make the movie that I'm setting out to make?
And rounding out this episode of the Producer Podcast Highlights, we have Assistant Director Jonathan Schutz.
I guess, kind of wrapping up the whole concept of ADing and AD-producer relationship. Like I said before, you want to be working together on the same team. I think that one of the biggest issues that we have in the film industry oftentimes is this mindset that we're against each other in some way. One department feels like they're vying for the resources of another department, or the creative and the logistics are always butting heads because they have goals that are counter to each other. And in reality, that shouldn't be the case, and that isn't the way that things are made to be set up and to happen and to run. That's a sign of dysfunction whenever those things are happening. And the producer and the AD really come down to the whole logistics side. And if your people that are on the logistics side, that are in the making things happen side of things, are too busy looking at that as the primary goal, as opposed to making the best product possible and to helping the people to give them the best, most enriching experience possible. If they're looking at things other than those two things as their goals, then that's going to help cause that dysfunction. And dysfunction in that way, in that manner, coming from either of those two positions is going to sow dysfunction in the crew and in the cast. It's going to sow dysfunction through the entire production like no other positions will. Because really and truly, whenever we're making films, yes, people talk about film is forever, pain is temporary, film is forever. That's kind of true. But the fact of the matter is, people last forever. They have an eternal soul. And what you actually do to take care of the people or to not take care of the people is going to last and is going to be an indelible impact in those people that were actually part of your production, as much or more than any impact that your finished product is going to have. That's why the Christian Worldview Film Festival, where we met, has as one of the core values that you need to honor God in the process as much as you do in the end product. That really matters. And so if your AD and your producer, those people who are responsible, the gatekeepers of the logistics, the gatekeepers of the schedule and the budget, which, you know, time is money, so the two are inextricably intertwined. If those people have as their mindset that they're here to serve, they're here to serve the creatives, they're here to make the creative vision come to life as well as it can, and they're here to serve the crew, that servant's heart, that servant's attitude, that's going to do a lot to help the set. That's going to do a lot to benefit the people that are involved. And that's the only way forward, frankly, in this industry, to making it a sustainable industry. We see people getting burnt out, people getting tired, people quitting film production, because they are just worn out. They're tired. Like I said, they're getting burnt out because of productions. And if there was a mindset shift, and it's a hard one to have, to consistently put the people over whatever it is that your production goal is, you're going to end up with a better product. And you're going to have a core of people that want to work with you. You're going to have a core of people that are going to be better at what they do the next time that they come on, next time that you make something, they're going to be better at what they do. So you're going to benefit. They're going to benefit. And frankly, you know, once again, coming from a Christian perspective, the kingdom of heaven benefits, because we are modeling to the world what Christ is, what his values, what matters to him. We're modeling that in what we do. And we're stating that the end does not justify the means. So honestly, those are things that really matter to me based on what I've seen, based on what I hear from people. And so I try to make it a goal that my priorities that people see whenever I'm ADing, whenever I'm directing, producing, whatever I'm doing, that matches the reality. And it's still something to grow in and to learn, especially whenever you're working on productions with tight schedules, with tight budgets, or whenever you're working with clients that don't come from a Christian worldview themselves. One of the big productions that I worked on this past year was with Bartlett Idea Company and their Riverside County Sheriff's Department promo. With a group like that, you can't pray on set. If you're in the Riverside County Jail, you can't just huddle up and have everybody pray and just, broadcast that to the world. But what you can do is take care of your people and care about them and put that first over some production goal that you have. And that has as big of an impact as anything else that we do in the advancement of the kingdom and also in the betterment of people. So,
And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Producer Podcast Highlights. Stay tuned for more episodes of the Producer Podcast Highlights coming soon, as well as new episodes of the show. Make sure you subscribe to the Producer Podcast on Instagram, as well as wherever you listen to podcasts.